Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Akary Busto, and I'm coming to you from Long Beach, California. We celebrate women for being ambitious. Sometimes we don't realize that ambition grows from survival. Sometimes what we consider drive is our nervous system trying to stay safe. What looks like ambition on the outside is often survival on the inside. We can't heal what we don't translate inside of our bodies. This happened to me when I was 6 years old. Imagine this, a cold, rainy morning in Southern California. I find myself being led to the principal's office. And as we're walking through that dark, gloomy hall, I can still smell the rubber cement and the construction paper. As she leads me into his office, I realize that I'm sitting on a wooden chair right in front of him. My feet didn't even touch the floor. And as I was dangling my feet, trying to feel steady, because obviously I thought I was in trouble, I realized that I have 4 grown adults around me. I have my teacher, I have my mother, my stepfather, and I also have the principal. As I was sitting there, my teacher looked at me and wanted to know, why was I experiencing so much anxiety? I was 6 years old. I had no idea what that word even meant. I felt attacked. I felt really uncomfortable. I did not feel safe. And so when she was talking to me, I realized that my little 6-year-old self needed to feel safe. And so the only thing that I could muster to share was, I am scared of loud voices. I didn't share about the violence. I didn't share about the beatings. I wanted to make sure that there were no repercussions when I went home. And after that meeting, I was still forced to translate all of this to my parents. So here's this 6-year-old little girl carrying the emotional burden of the adults. As the years went by, the responsibility continued to grow. By the time I was 8 years old, I was trying to explain to my mother what credit card minimum payments meant. By the time I was 12 years old, I was already starting to contribute financially. When I turned 15, I actually worked at a sweatshop. And every week I brought home $80. Oppression arrives quietly, and you start to learn that your worth doesn't come from who you are, but what you do. That was the moment when my wild self became quiet. She started to silence herself. Over the years, when I joined the corporate world, it was quite interesting that when I was the fixer, I would get praised. When I was overperforming, I was being rewarded. I made more money. And I realized that I became the person who wanted to outwork everyone else. There was a huge need for me to be number one. Inside of myself, I could tell that I was experiencing the same survival tactics and patterns that I had when I was a child. And finally, when my body burnt out, I couldn't do it anymore. My nervous system wouldn't allow me to continue. And at the same time, I was trying to find a way to make my relationship with my mother work. And it didn't matter how much I cried, how much I begged to be seen, to be witnessed, to be heard. I had to come to the realization that that woman had never figured out how to love herself. So how could she show up for me? For the first time, I decided to choose my nervous system over cultural obligation that says, it's your mom, it's your mother. That was a very difficult moment for me. However, I still decided to go no contact. At first, I really did think I was going to feel guilty. But what came through me was this big sense of relief. It was like a full body exhale for the first time since childhood. I needed a way to stay steady for myself, because even though I felt that relief, and even though I felt proud of myself for actually picking me, I also felt the grief for that little girl that for so long was trying to be seen. This is the first time that I made the intentional connection with myself. It is the She Who Knows practice that I created. And I did this by doing a heart-centered path to my own resilience. I offered myself the opportunity to connect with my heart and allow myself to connect with my heartbeat. And with every inhale, I allowed myself to connect to safety. And with every exhale, I could feel myself softening after decades of so much tension. It is through this hand-on-heart practice that I was able to connect to what I like to call my wild self. That woman who was being clouded by the conditioning and by the fear that actually molded my identity. This may look like a really small shift from the outside, but from the inside, this is a completely new lineage that I'm creating. A lineage that begins with me. This is the truth that I stand in now. I have made the decision that this stops with me, and at the same time, it starts with me anew. I am this wild self that is no longer going to hide, and I am here to show how I am living from my truth to help other women do the same.
Wow, what an incredible journey you have been on. I tell you, as an immigrant woman living out of her home country for over 40 years, I can so relate to your story. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of immigrant women who can do the same. Now, take us back to the moment that you first realized that you had become your family's voice.
Take you back to an experience? Is that what you're asking?
For the first time you realized that you had become your family's voice.
I think that was probably the first time was sitting in that office by myself thinking I was in trouble and having that fear of what was going to happen if I said something wrong or if I shared something that wasn't right. And the amount of responsibility for translating for my parents because there was no way for them to communicate with either with the principal or the teacher.
So you really felt the weight of translating adult responsibilities as a 6-year-old.
I did, and I felt, I think at a certain level there's a sense of pride of being able to do this for your family, but at the same time there's a lot of confusion because it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel right.
How that experience you had in the principal's office, how did it shape your understanding of anxiety and responsibility?
At that moment, I didn't understand what that word meant. And I think that for a lot of women in general, we get gaslit to think that it's nothing, you're fine. So anxiety hasn't been a word in my vocabulary for a very long time until probably the past 5 years as my daughter has grown up and said, Mom, I feel anxious.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. And what did it mean to grow up navigating two cultures at once?
It's been really difficult because you and I were talking about how things get lost in translation.
Yes.
And I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me quite often where there's a word that I'm trying to say in English, but it doesn't exist, but it exists in Spanish.
Yes.
And people don't understand what I'm trying to portray, or they get offended.
Yeah, I can so relate to that.
Yeah, so that's been a little difficult to navigate because from a very young age, that whole thing around your worth comes from what you do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of perfectionism that's still hiding there.
Can you imagine? So, how did your early experiences influence your leadership style today?
I think my early experiences have taught me that that's not the right way. And I really do believe that we inherit a dysregulated nervous system from our ancestors. As many beautiful things that we get to inherit, we also inherit a dysregulated nervous system. And unless we're able to spotlight that and turn it around and ask questions, it's a blind spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And you don't even realize you have it.
No, no, it's not easy for us to see it. And
Yeah.
even the person on the outside may not have the ability to actually spot it on you either.
So, what was the biggest challenges that you faced as an immigrant daughter in school and in society?
Oh my gosh. Well, the biggest experiences that I've had is because I'm also biracial. My father's Korean and my mother's Mexican. And growing up in an all Mexican community and not looking like them,
Yeah.
there's a lot of racism that happens within that system. I grew up in a very predominantly Mexican neighborhood, and not fitting in was a really big deal. It caused me to be isolated. And interestingly enough, it wasn't just the isolation from my social life with school, there was also isolation within the family because I
Wow.
didn't look like them.
Wow.
I actually remember there's a book. called The Women Who Run with Wolves. And there's a story about the ugly duckling in the book. And I really could see myself in that whole space. I didn't look like anyone else. And at
Yeah.
the end, I realized, well, of course not, because I'm a goose. I'm not a duck.
I love it. I love it. Now, how did your sense of identity evolve as you grew older?
I've always identified as Mexican. And so, ironically, because I studied history, I focused a lot on Mexican history. So, there's a big sense of pride around my country,
Mm-hmm.
the culture, the values, the beautiful family unison that you see. There's a lot of culture in it. And so I identified as Mexican more than I did anything else. And being in America doesn't mean that you have culture.
It's true. That is so, so true. Now, when did you first realize that your story could help others?
I think I was really young when in elementary school we would have all of these women who would come and share stories.
Right.
And I stayed stuck in listening to people's stories. Uh, we talked a little bit about human design earlier, and in my chart, I am the one that people come to and share these amazing, incredible stories. And so women come from me globally and share these stories. And I realize that I have never really shared my story, and they don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
And so really aligning into that, I now feel this curiosity for myself at what would it be like to share my story with the world for a change.
Mm-hmm.
And how much more connection could I find from other women who can identify my story to be similar to their own?
Yes. And this is what happens with the magic of storytelling. You'll find there's more similarities than differences most of the time. So, what role did women's studies and history play in expanding your life view, your worldview?
Well, first of all, it showed me that I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
I think I grew up in a very toxic male dominated home where his word was the last word.
Mm,
And I constantly questioned that. There's a book by Glennon Doyle, Untamed. And
right.
in the preface of the book, she talks about a cheetah who's chasing a Labrador, grew up with a Labrador.
Right.
So it struggled because you could see that the cheetah could tell that she was this wild, savage animal, but was being conditioned to be like a Labrador.
Right.
And so I feel that that has happened to us women, where the history or her story, right? Her
Yeah.
story has been taken away from all of these different books, academia, and including the Bible. So when I start to look at it from that perspective, I realize that we are not being validated, or the stories that are being told are not our stories.
Yeah.
Women's studies just validated my existence. It validated how I felt about the patriarchy. And
Yeah.
it gave me the tools to understand that I could actually question things and be curious about why, the why.
Mm,
It's been a very powerful discovery for me. It means a lot to me to empower other women.
yeah.
What's been really difficult is how many women don't understand, don't have the awareness, or feel it, but realize that maybe it's not for them to go further into that discovery because they're afraid of changing the status quo.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about belonging and what it means to you now as an adult.
Hmm.
Why is it important for us to talk about multiculturalism with compassion, do you think?
I think it's important because, as we were talking about before, things get lost in translation. And And if we have a little more compassion, we can see that the intention is never to hurt anybody else.
Mm.
The words that we say, I think because I don't have an accent,
Yes.
people automatically assume that this is my first language. And it's not.
It's not.
And there are so many different nuances to my comprehension, and then obviously the way I speak it and express it, that may sometimes come out, I think, a little more direct.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to facilitate that with each other, to be able to say, oh, I didn't understand that. What did you mean? Or
Yes.
can you please explain that a little better, because I'm a little lost with what you're trying to convey. I think it's compassionate and it's kind to know that, number one, I'm not trying to misunderstand you, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth,
Yeah.
but allowing me to elaborate a little bit more.
Yes.
It may allow your nervous system to calm down too, because you realize that there is no harm in this conversation. There's no intention to do wrong. And I do believe in the goodness of people.
That's nice. That's really beautiful. Now, what do you believe the world misunderstands most about immigrant families?
The whole premise around we're here to take something from you. There are
Mm.
so many different women that I've encountered over my lifetime, and more when I was in corporate, going and getting services done, whether it was my nails or my hair, and just hearing the conversations in the background around women doing nails and talking about immigrants coming and taking their jobs. And it didn't make any sense to me.
Mm.
Like, you speak English, these immigrants are struggling to just keep food on their tables. And
Mm.
all they're doing is surviving, because they don't know any other way. They're
Yeah.
coming from countries that are experiencing so much devastation. And when
Yeah.
we come from a mindset of there's not enough, then there's not going to be enough. But if we get into that mindset that we can grow together and we can learn together, I
Mhm.
think that it opens the door for a lot more.
That's so good.
And you have to realize that a lot of these immigrant communities come with a lot of beautiful values, and they're very centered around family.
Yes.
Things that are no longer at the top of our priority list in America.
Mm. So, why is the preservation of subjective lived women's stories so important today?
Because we don't have enough of it, because it's not her story, it's his story.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to see ourselves in these stories so that we can continue to be validated and empowered to know that we are in the right place at the right time, and it's okay for us to take space. When our identity comes from fear, we shrink and we play small.
Yeah.
And with the permission slip of her story, it allows us to do much more for the world, because when women lead, we feed communities. We take care of our people. We don't just hoard for us. We want to do for others.
And that is so important. Now, you talked through your framework in the beginning, and I'd love you to walk us through it again. So, your framework was called She Who Knows. It's a heart centered resilience practice. Walk us through it again so the audience can really cement this teaching.
So it is connecting yourself to she who knows, and that is your heart. And
Mhm.
so you can place your hand on your heart and connect to that heartbeat, that energy that runs through your whole body. And as you're connecting to your heartbeat, you close your eyes and you imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart space. As you inhale, imagine your heart growing and expanding. And as you exhale, feel your heart softening. Inhale, it grows. And exhale, it softens even deeper. And as you're connecting, I'm going to invite you to start breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. There's no right or wrong way, just your way. And as you're connecting here, feel that shift. It can be subtle, it can be big. No expectations here. And when you notice the shift, maybe your shoulders let go of tension, maybe your neck softens. Flip your eyes open in the present and in the now.
That is beautiful. Very grounding.
It's very, very beautiful to be able to go within, and she who knows, she shares what you need to know.
Yeah. Now let me take you on a bit of a thought experiment to finish off our interview. I'm going to teleport you into the past, and I want you to go and connect with the younger you, that little girl who had all these responsibilities in a foreign country, just trying to navigate life. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
I think the first one would be fight for your freedom. Fight for your freedom. For a long time, I gave up so much of my power, and I would want to take that power back. The other nugget of wisdom would be, it's all going to be okay. Don't worry, don't stress. And the last one would be, continue to find your joy, because finding your joy means that you will find your life and soul purpose a lot sooner.
I like that last one. Joy is where it all belongs. Now let me teleport you into the future, and we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she is sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her great-grandchildren, whoever's going to be with you at the end. If I could teleport you back into the past to go and meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
We made it. We made it. We got here. We did it. And with all of the wisdom that we have accumulated up to now, we're continuing to do the work of expanding and taking up space, so that by the time that I am sitting on that rocking chair, I could feel like I have done my best to help inspire more women and light up more homes through her work. I would say the women are the neck of the household. The men are the head, and we move the head. We, the neck, can move the head.
Again, very, very powerful. It's interesting that not many women realize the power that lies in their hands. And we are the neck that moves the head. I've never heard it put in such a powerful, powerful way. Wow. Now, is there anything else I should have asked you and I didn't?
No, I think that you've done a really great job of digging deep into me. You've already left your mark.
Fantastic. And the best way that people can find you?
They can find me at my website, or they can find me on Instagram and on Substack.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for coming online and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us today. That last question, the reason why I like to ask women to teleport into the future is because I believe the wise woman is already in us, that she's already here, and you're doing this with your work and getting us to tune into the essence of who we are and who we are becoming. And I have conversations with her. Sometimes I get stuck on something I'm working on. I go into my meditation and my prayers, And I ask her questions like, so what is the next step? And I sleep on that. Then I wake up the next morning, I'm in the shower, and I have those light bulb moments where everything makes perfect sense. And I know exactly what to do as my next step. Or I talk to other women. I share what projects I'm working on. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. By the end of the week, this woman has told me this, another one has brought another piece to the puzzle, and the puzzle just comes back together so beautifully.
Yeah,
So thank you.
your future self always comes back.
She does. She does. Thank you so much for your work, for helping women to ground themselves and just to remember the essence of who they are and who they are becoming. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who is struggling with your identity, you are living in a multicultural world, and you have your foot in many worlds. Some women have got 3, 4 nationalities. Go back to the essence of you. The answers are there. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Akary, thanks again for the interview. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.